Hello everybody and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be covering custom events. So of course you know what events are. It's where we create the event handler, we write a function underneath it, and then we choose from a massive range of events. And an event is just something that is triggered when something happens in game. So we have the player move event, that's when a player moves. We have the player toggle sneak event, that's when a player toggles sneak. You have loads of entity events, you have loads of connection related events, you have loads of world and map related events. Now of course all of these different types of events are within the API that we use. However, what if you want a custom event? So say you have a massive plugin and you want to do something which will trigger a custom event that you can listen to in different parts of your plugins, or even get this from a different plugin, then that's what I'm going to show you today, is how to create custom events. So these events will work natively with the API. It'll be a very smooth integration. I'll show you how to create the event class. I'll show you how to call the event, so that means fire the event. And then I'll show you how to just use it like a normal event, just like an event handler. It's a seamless integration. Now, one example I can think of where I used this recently, personally, was I had a massive plugin and I had a whole custom rank system. And by the way, we have a video on a rank system as well, so if you want to tackle that, then feel free. But I made a rank system, and then I made it so that whenever somebody's rank changes, it calls my custom event called the rank change event. And then from across my massive plugin, I listened to this event. And the reason I did that is because I had maybe 3 different places in the plugin where I wanted to do different things when the player's rank changes. And so that's just one example. In today's example, what I'm going to do is create an event that the API doesn't have. I think this will be a fun event. And also it's going to incorporate lots of different knowledge as well. What I'm going to do is create an event called the server broadcast event. And what that's going to do is when a player runs my custom command /broadcast, that'll globally send a message to everybody on the server. But then also it's going to fire the server broadcast event. And then we can listen to that event. We can also listen to, for example, the message that was broadcasted, the player who broadcasted it. We can even cancel it. We can do all these things that are part of events. So yeah, I think that'll be a good example to bring everything together. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create my event. So I'm going to create new Kotlin class. Now you can structure this however you want. You can also name it however you want, but I will just add that if you decide not to put the word event at the end, that would be pretty foolish unless you have a good reason, because all of the events in the API have the word event at the end. So try and follow the structure if you can. So for me, my event's going to fire when somebody runs /broadcast and broadcasts a message to the whole server. So I'm just going to call mine server broadcast event. You can call it anything you want, but I think this is a good name for my event. Okay, so I'm going to create a class. And then what we're going to do is make this class extend event, and then make sure it's the org.bucket.event, and we need to open the parentheses just like that. Now if you want this event to fire asynchronously, that is to say it'll fire on a separate thread to, for example, you may have noticed the chat event does this. The chat event runs on a separate thread, which means when the whole server's crashing, there's still a tiny bit of resources allocated towards the chat event, which is firing constantly. So if you want it to run asynchronously, then just pop in true here. By default, it's false, and I don't see any particular need to, so I will keep it like that. Okay, so you can see here we've got a little bit of an error, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and implement what it wants us to. Now, this is the caveat with the whole custom event system. And that is, Spigot and Bucket don't really make this easy or fun to do. It's just, there's a lot of stuff that you have to do just for the sake of having to do it. It's definitely not as good of an implementation as it could or should be, but we just have to live with it. So I'll take you through it, so don't worry too much. What we have to do is create a companion object. Now remember, everything inside of this block is essentially going to be one instance shared across as many instances of this class as you like. So if I created a val in here, I did val list equals list of. Now my list here, this list would be shared across every instance of the server broadcast event. So if I did 10 broadcasts, they all fired at the exact same tick, the exact same time, and I added something to the list, removed it, etc., there would only ever be one list. this is shared among all these instances. And that's the kind of the point of the whole object stuff. So if you're confused with that, maybe the Kotlin fundamentals videos are a good place to go back to. But otherwise, I think most of you probably grasp the topic by now. So what we have to do, unfortunately, is we need to create what are called handlers. So we do val handlers equals, and then we need to create a handler list. Okay. And then we need to create a function. We need to call it get handler list. By the way, guys, I realize this is not fun, but it's just, we have to do it. We're going to return a handler list and then return handlers. And then we have to add the @JVM static annotation to this. Okay, we're almost done, because what we're going to do down here is then return handlers. Okay, so the good news is this is all of the boilerplate stuff that we have to add. And by boilerplate, I just mean fluff, stuff that we don't really want to do, but we have to do it to make your event function. So we just have to live with it. So what we're going to do next is, well, the fun's going to start now. We're going to customize our event to contain the data that we want it to contain. Now, the way that we do that is pretty simple. We just add it as data inside of our constructor here. So this is data that's passed through when an instance of server broadcast event is created. So what data do we want regarding somebody broadcasting something? Well, immediately in my head, I can think of two things. First thing is the player. So the player who broadcasted it. So we'll take a val player. And then the second thing I can think of is, well, the message that they broadcasted. What if I want to look at their message and check it for any reason? So I'll just do val message string. And then we can just end it off there. I think that's good data to have in my event. So then with this, what we're going to be able to do is create our event handler. We'll listen to this event. We'll call it E, as we always do. And then we can just do E dot, and we'll have access to E dot player and E dot message. So you can kind of see how it's all coming together a bit. Okay, so the final thing that we can do inside of this event is we can make it implement cancelable. Now, you'll notice throughout the course that we've had some events which are cancelable and some that aren't. And by cancelable, I just mean, you know, when you do e.is cancelled and you set that to either true or false. Of course, when you do that, it means the action that triggered the event doesn't actually happen. So for example, when we cancel the block break event, when a player breaks a block, when we cancel that, we do our logic and stuff, and the event will keep firing. If it's cancelled, the block does not break. Because here's what happens. This is the order of execution. The player's client tells the server that they broke the block. The server tells us in event form, hey, this player's broken the block. And then if we choose to cancel it, we then say to the server, hey, reject this block break. And then the server goes and tells the client. So it's a very big sort of chain of messages. But essentially, we are denying them from doing something. So if you want your custom event to be cancelable, then what we need to do is make our event implement cancelable and a couple other things. And what we'll then do in our plugin is when we do the /broadcast command, which we're going to do in a couple minutes, we'll check if the event has been cancelled. And if it has, then don't allow the broadcast to go out. And that's just how the cancelling logic is implemented. So because I do want my event to be cancelable, I will do extends event implements cancelable. And then now I've got another thing to implement. So we'll hover over implement members, and you'll see we have these two things here which are related to the cancelling. So what we need to do for this is we need to create an isCancelled variable. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put these at the top just because I kind of want to get rid of all this ugly stuff out of my eyesight. So what you can do is we'll create a private var, because of course we want isCancelled to be changed by plugins. So isCancelled equals false by default. We don't want to cancel it by default. And then what we'll do is in here we can return isCancelled. Okay, and then if they want to set whether something's cancelled, then we do isCancelled equals cancel. That's just the parameter here. Okay, perfect. So now when we listen to the event, we're able to do e.isCancelled equals true or false. And then we just need to add the logic in our broadcast command to dictate whether it's allowed based on whether it's been cancelled or not. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll stop talking about it. We'll stop yapping and we'll actually go ahead and create the broadcast command. So broadcast command. Okay, I'm going to implement command executor. Hover over, I'm going to implement members. What I'm also going to do, and this is going to be especially relevant in today's video, I'm going to remove this question mark here because I know that this array will never actually be null. And then I can head to plugin.yml and we'll write our command in. Commands broadcast, and then I'll head to my main class. We'll do get command broadcast, set executor, and then broadcast command. And then I can also just do not null, because I know it's not null because I just put it in my plugin.yml. Okay, so now when somebody runs /broadcast, it's going to run, our broadcast command is going to run the code inside of here. So let's have a bit of fun now with a broadcast command. So somebody runs /broadcast, what happens? Well, first things first, we have to make sure they have actually provided something to broadcast. Okay, so to check that they've actually provided something useful, so like at least one word or character or anything, we'll do if args.isEmpty, then we'll do, well, we'll firstly return, but we'll also send them a nice message saying you're dumb and you haven't provided anything for us to broadcast. So we'll do sender, we'll do send plain message, invalid usage, please provide a broadcast message. Okay, perfect. So now at least we know there is a valid message to send in some form. So thankfully Kotlin has a really nice way of us joining this message together. So obviously you can see that the args is a string array. It's not a whole string. And of course we can't send a broadcast message of a string array. We're gonna have to send out a string. So to join those, it's very simple. We can just do val joined, and we'll do args.join to string. And then we just use this one, and then we just put a space. So what it's going to do is it's going to join all of those strings together. And in between each of the strings, it's going to put this symbol here. In our case, a space. So it's going to look like a complete sentence. So if I run a command /broadcast, and I say, hi, my name is Stephen. If I run this, then obviously, hi, my name is Stephen would all be separate strings here. It'll now look like exactly how I entered it here. So simple stuff. What we're going to do now is the fun part. We're going to call our event. So somebody has just run /broadcast. Of course, if you want to add permissions to this and stuff, feel free, but I'm just here for the events. So somebody's just run /broadcast. We've now got the message that they're going to send. We've got the player. What I'll do is I'm going to create a new instance of the server broadcast event. In fact, I'll call it val event equals server broadcast event. Okay, and then of course our data points are player, so the sender, and then our joined, so that's the joined message. So what this now means is that we've got a new instance of this event class. It's just basically a data class. Now it's worth noting that this doesn't actually fire the event through the bucket event system yet. The way that you do that is by bucket.getPluginManager.call event. And we call event like that. Now, what that means is if you have an event handler set up just like this, so function on server broadcast, server broadcast event. So just like a regular event, this by the way is exactly how we use our event. Then you'll see if we do e.isCancelled, just like any other event, we can set it to true or false. So now it's our job as the plugin developer to dictate what happens when somebody cancels it. Of course, if somebody sets the cancel to true, then we can't send out the broadcast. We're going to have to stop it. So what we'll do is if event.isCancelled, then we're going to return false. Okay, so we are going to stop the code execution if somebody in here, anyone who's listening to our event, it could be just us, it could be 100 different plugins, anyone who's listening to our event, if any of them have cancelled it, then the code execution will stop, which means what we are about to write will not run. So have a guess what we're about to write. It's the actual broadcast code. So we'll simply do bucket.broadcast, and we'll create a component. We'll do component.text, and then we'll simply pop in joined. Okay, so It's a little bit of logic going on here, but hopefully this is kind of self-explanatory. So firstly, we're making sure they've sent us some arguments that we can then join to our string with a space in between each word, so it looks like a proper sentence. And then we're creating a new instance of our event. We're calling the event, which is what's required in order to actually run in the listeners. And then we're finding out if somebody has cancelled the event, and if they have, then stop the code execution, because it means if they have not cancelled it, then the code will still run. So that's pretty perfect logic for the event side of things. What we can do is we can actually go and seriously listen to our event. So let me just quickly return false in here, just as a formality, just like that. You can put a space if you'd like, just to make it a bit nicer. And I'm going to go ahead and take my event handler, and I'm going to go register it in an actual listener class. So we'll just use our main class as a listener. And then don't forget to register your listener. Bucket to get plugin manager register events. This to refer to the listener. This to refer to the main class. Okay, so as you can see, our server broadcast event is like fully integrated into the event system. We don't have to do anything extra. It now works. So what we can do is if e.player, e.message, you see these are both things that we put inside of our event here. And then we can also, of course, cancel it, as I said. So why don't I listen to the server broadcast event when somebody runs a command, and I will just send a console message. I'll do print line, please work. Okay, so we could also print out more data just to prove that this is going to work. So we could do print line. We'll do player name, and then e.player.name. And then we'll do print line, and then we'll do message, and then e.player. And then e.message. Okay, so I'm pretty confident this is going to work. Hopefully you can kind of understand what's going on here. The only difficult part, the only kind of caveat with this whole system is how awkward this event class is. And I understand, but it's very simply just part of how it works in the API, and there's not a whole lot we can do. But hopefully this makes a bit more sense now that you've seen it all written out. We've got some very beautiful code here. There's very little nesting. It's all nicely written out. It's all very easy to understand. So hopefully we're all on the same page here. So I'm going to go ahead and head to Gradle, and I'm going to run my server, and I'll hop on in a second, and hopefully we have some good results. All right, guys, so I'm on my server now, and what we can do is, if I do such broadcast, you'll see we do have a valid command. So if I just do broadcast without any arguments, it says invalid usage, please provide a message. So let me say broadcast, this is the best course. Okay, you guys ready? I'm going to press enter, and there we go. So it said, this is the best course. So the broadcast actually worked, and that's just a broadcast command. That's what we made it do. But interestingly, let's go ahead and take a look at our console. So we wanted to do it so that every time the server broadcast event is fired, it prints these 3 lines out. And look what we've got, guys. We have please work. We have the player name who sent it. We have the message that we sent. And don't forget, none of this was taken directly from the command or anything like that. We actually listened to the event, which was called inside of the command. So this is proof of a working event system. And of course, you'll see this is the best course. The reason that was printed to console also is because when you run bucket.broadcast, like we did here, that broadcasts it to console as well as chat. So yeah, there we go, guys. That is how you make custom events. I fully understand why this may not be the most fun thing to do when you look at when you look at this class and what you have to do. But there's so many different use cases for this, and if you're making a big plugin, it can be really, really useful. There's no shame in using custom events. In fact, I encourage them where you can. But yeah, so that's all I have for today, guys. If you need any assistance with this, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Good luck. I hope it went well for you, and I will see you in the next video.